no style or sophistication.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cat. I'm sorry.
You people are unbelievable.
Well, I've reviewed every episode of Black Adam, my favourite sitcom from the 80s, so I thought I'd best make a start on my second favourite, Red Dwarf. And what better place to start than Season 1, Episode 1, The End, mainly because that's the beginning. It's also considered by many to be one of the best episodes of Series 1. It introduces the show's iconic characters and setting, and also sets the tone and humour for the rest of the series brilliantly. First airing on the BBC on the 15th of February 1988. The episode was written and the series conceived by the writing duo of Rob Grant and Doug Naylor initially in 1983, and almost never made it to the screen for numerous reasons. Firstly, the duo had a near-fatal car crash towards the end of completing the script. Then once they had finished it, the BBC rejected it, not once, not twice, but 3 times, before finally accepting it. Then if all that wasn't bad enough, even when it did go into production, an electrician's strike at the BBC in 1987 meant the project got put back on the back burner and almost cancelled entirely, eventually going ahead after the strike ended. But that wasn't the end of the shenanigans for episode 1, because 2/3 of the episode was reshot at the end of the schedule, as Grant and Naylor felt a lot of it didn't work and they had spare time available for reshoots. With the background out of the way, let's jump straight into the episode. The main thrust of the show is instantly set out in the very first scene, that being the odd couple dynamic between Dave Lister and Arnold Rimmer, these two arguably being the two main antagonists of the show, and they provide it with most of its comedy, especially in the first season, largely through exploring that odd couple dynamic. This is instantly established in the very first scene with their reaction to a senior officer.
Rimmer, Lister?
Yes, sir. Yo, Todd Hunter, get down!
Basically, Lister is a slobbish, lazy, but lovable character, while Rimmer is the polar opposite of that, being an uptight, neurotic and self-absorbed smeghead. A fact that is reinforced with these two jokes from the very same scene.
Now, Rimmer, I'm just going through McIntyre's artifacts, and I see that you filed 247 complaints against Lister.
Did you hear that, sir? Lister, do you have any conception of the penalty for describing a superior technician as a smeghead?
Oh, Rimmer! You are a smeghead.
Craig Charles, who plays Lister, was at the time a contemporary and urban performance poet, who had been sent the script to ask his opinion on whether the cat character was racist or not. After begging the producer for an audition on reading the script initially trying for the role as the cat, he was thought a better fit for the character of Lister. Chris Barry, who had worked with Grant and Naylor on their radio show previously, was considered for both Lister and Rimmer before eventually being cast as Rimmer. I think they made the perfect choices here, as Barry is the perfect embodiment of the stuck-up British middle-class tryhard in the way he looks and acts on screen, especially the sneering way he looks down on Lister. Craig Charles is also perfectly cast as the northern down-to-earth working-class man, being the very picture of the stereotype that the middle-class smegheads that Rimmer represents in the show would have in their minds in real life. Although not entirely obvious here in this first episode, even though superficially Rimmer and Lister despise each other, it does become ever more obvious as the series progresses that deep down, really deep down, they do have a strong bond and friendship. We get a bit of what I believe is called foreshadowing in the scriptwriting world next, with first the funeral of and then resurrection of George McIntyre as a hologram. Originally, this character was meant to be Australian to underline the internationalness of the crew, but Robert McCulley, the actor, couldn't do a convincing Aussie accent, so instead he did a Welsh one. Here we get another great joke based around Lister and Rimmer's relationship.
Holly tells me that he sensed a non-human life form aboard.
Say it, it's Rimmer!
Following this, the episode moves on to what will become a running joke throughout the entire run of the show. Rimmer's constant attempts at social and career advancement that are constantly and almost instantly kiboshed by his own neuroticism and incompetence. We then get our first intro to the cat character, who is in fact a normal cat called Frankenstein. Apparently this scene was difficult to shoot as Craig Charles's ballsack kept falling out of his shorts and the cat kept attacking them rather than looking at the picture of Fiji. The cat is contraband, so Lister is summoned to the captain's office, where we get our first glimpse of Christine Kochanski, Lister's long-term love interest, who shows up very sporadically and is played by numerous actresses over the years. Here she's portrayed by the new wave singer Claire Grogan. We also get one of the best jokes of the episode here.
Do you have a cat?
No.
Have you got a cat?
Just underlining the cheeky, almost naive charm that Lister possesses, because he refuses to give up the cat, he is placed in stasis for the rest of the trip, which is 18 months. And then, on being released 3 million years later, is told this by Holly the computer.
They're dead, Dave.
Who is?
Everybody, Dave.
Holly was initially a purely voiceover character, but the actor Norman Lovett convinced Grant and Naylor he should be a disembodied head on screens around the ship, and this was added in the reshoots they did at the end of the production. Holly is another major character from the first season, being a dim-witted, somewhat slightly insane super genius of an AI, but as he himself says, has gone a bit peculiar after 3 million years on his own. Rimmer is then reintroduced as a hologram, and on being asked what death is like, he responds in typical hilarious understated fashion.
Death? It's like being on holiday with a group of Germans.
Before the episode ends, we are introduced to the last of the 4 main characters and cast of this series, with Danny John Jules as the Cat, a member of a humanoid cat species who evolved from Lister's cat. He's vain, flamboyant, dumber than an unripe mango, and with an entirely over-the-top feeling of his own self-importance. So basically he's a cat, which you can see in this joke here.
Uh-oh. Better make myself look big.
Again, perfectly cast with Danny John Jules, who, like everyone else in the cast, had no prior acting experience, having been a dancer prior to the show, turning up 30 minutes late for his audition, being entirely unconcerned about it, whilst wearing his father's zoot suit. He looks and acts the part perfectly, giving off that cat-like vibe of I'm too cool for this shit. The episode then ends with Lister ordering Holly to set a course for Fiji, where he can open his dream farm, which is another running gag that crops up several times in this episode, and several more times in future ones. Beyond introducing the characters and the basic premise, the first episode also shows us the setting. That being the eponymously named mining vessel Red Dwarf, whose exterior is prominently featured in a very impressive large model in the opening credits. The interiors are all very grey and made to look like a submarine in this first season. I suspect more because the budget wouldn't stretch to anything else than for aesthetic reasons. In other words, yeah, the sets look very cheap even for British TV in the 80s, as do the uniforms that are a fascinating mix of beige and browns. Beyond the cat, this first episode is not a feast for the eyes visually. It is also unusual in that it has a large number of guest stars, not including the ones previously mentioned. We also get Mac McDonald as Captain Hollister, an American actor I've never seen anywhere else but in Red Dwarf. Almost certainly cast here to outline the fact that Red Dwarf was an international ship. Mark Williams, who later went on to appear in the Harry Potter franchise, also appears as Lister's best friend and all-round doofus, Peterson. The first episode of Red Dwarf does a brilliant job of introducing the main cast of characters, their dynamic, and how that is going to drive humorous situations, having numerous laugh-out-loud moments that even 35 years after first airing, and several viewings on my part, are still hilarious. I of course highly recommend it to you, not least of which because I'll be attempting to review every single episode of Red Dwarf. I'm aiming to do a couple of episodes every month, interspersing them with my usual B-movie retrospectives. So, thanks for watching, and if you enjoy that, then like, comment and subscribe.